Revenge films.
Growing up, my family was poor and I had 3 brothers, which meant that we had to share the little food that we had.
Dinner's ready. Go wash your hands.
Yay! What's for dinner, Mommy?
Some stir-fried bean sprouts.
Again? We always have bean sprouts.
No complaining. We need to be thankful that we have food to eat.
My mom would prepare 1 large plate of food every meal, which we would share. That is how it was for a family. But because of my 3 brothers, we had a great time eating together and none of us were upset that we didn't get to eat anything fancy ever.
I love watching you share a big plate of food and having a good time.
I loved my mother, who always had a positive attitude about life. Fast forwarding to the future, and I was now all grown up. I met my husband through a friend, and we got married. In the beginning, I went on double dates with my future husband and our friends. But over time, we became closer and started to date exclusively.
Here, try my burger. I think you'll love it.
Thanks, you're right. I love it.
You can have the whole thing, actually.
Are you sure? My husband was a kind and generous man, and I loved spending time with him. Growing up, I was always hungry, so as an adult, I didn't pass up an opportunity to eat. He was the kind of man who would offer me the last bite and give generous portions to everything that we ordered. I repaid him by giving him all the things that he wanted because I didn't want our relationship to be one-sided. I was in love with my husband from the very beginning, and I thought that he was the one for me. After a year of dating, my husband-to-be proposed to me, and of course, I said yes. I looked forward to a happy life with him. After he proposed, we arranged a time and date to meet each other's parents.
What a beautiful girl you brought home. I know that we live far from you two, but we would love for you to come visit us during the summer and winter holidays.
Yes, we'd love to. Thank you. I was relieved to know that my husband's parents were as nice as he was. After we got married, my husband and I moved into a new apartment together. I was enjoying my life as a newlywed until I found out that my husband was not the person that I thought he was. One day, we went out for a nice meal at a restaurant. I loved everything on their menu and wanted to order a little bit of everything. In the past, my husband would always say to me,
Order anything that you want. We'll split everything so that you can try all the different dishes.
But this time, he ordered what he wanted without even asking for my opinion. He also seemed irritated by the fact that I was taking a long time to decide on what to order.
Could you please hurry up?
Oh, yes, sorry about that. I was pretty upset because we used to come to this restaurant a lot when we were dating, and we always had a great time. The food looks amazing, as always.
Yeah.
I didn't know why my husband was acting different. I then received a phone call. Sorry, I need to take this. It's from the nurse taking care of my mother. I left the restaurant to take a call. My father passed away several years ago, and my mother was ill and needed a nurse to take care of her. After talking with the nurse, I went back to the restaurant. I was shocked to see that my husband had eaten all the food, including the food that I had ordered for myself. Oh, where did all the food go?
You were on the phone for so long and I got hungry, so I ate everything.
I hadn't even taken a bite. You could have left some food for me.
You left me alone at the table and I had nothing else to do but eat. This isn't my fault.
Well, it's not my fault that the nurse called me when she did. I had to take the call.
Let's not argue about something so trivial. I'm tired. Let's go home.
But what about me? I'm still hungry. I haven't eaten anything.
I'm sure that there's something to eat at home. Don't be so greedy.
I don't understand why you're making me feel bad when I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't understand my husband's sudden change in behavior, but I decided to let this one go. Maybe he really was just hungry and irritated? But as time passed, I realized that my husband's behavior and mood swings were not a temporary thing. In fact, they seemed to be getting worse. Did you eat the pudding that I left in the fridge? I was planning to eat it for dessert tonight.
Oh, I ate that.
I asked you not to eat things that I buy for myself. You could have checked with me first.
We're married. Why do we need to label what belongs to who? You're too obsessed with food.
But it seems like you go out of your way to eat the things that I leave in the fridge. You're being inconsiderate. And the other day, you ate my lunch. Don't you think that's going a little too far?
You're starting to get on my nerves. All you talk about is food.
I was annoyed at my husband for eating my food, but for some reason he was trying to make this all my fault. Like I was the one who was making a big deal out of nothing. And he would always say to me,
You're such a greedy bitch.
I didn't understand why he was being so difficult with me. I had every right to be mad at him for eating all my food. What was I supposed to eat then? My husband had no intention of apologizing for his behavior. Recently, when I would go grocery shopping, he would say to me,
Why do you always buy food for 2 people?
Because we are a family of 2, that's why.
You're buying food with my money. If you want to eat, you should pay for your own food.
I was so shocked by his words. He wasn't making sense to me. When we got engaged, my husband said to me,
You don't need to continue working. I'll make enough money for the 2 of us so you can do what you want with your free time.
I believed his words, which is why I quit my job. I was grateful because it gave me the time to check up on my sick mother from time to time. And now he's telling me to pay for my own food when he knew that I didn't have any money of my own? Why was he torturing me like this? What did I do to deserve this? I asked myself. From that day forward, my husband began to check the contents of the fridge and would get mad at me if I bought anything for myself.
What is this? I never said that you could buy yourself food with my money.
When we were still dating, my husband was a very kind man and was a perfect gentleman. But now he was acting angry and frustrated with me. One day, my husband came home and was in a good mood because he had gotten a big bonus from this stellar performance at work. He called me from work to ask me to prepare him a celebratory dinner.
I'm on my way home. Cook me something nice tonight. I deserve it.
I was happy because I assumed that we would be celebrating together. I prepared the dinner with the ingredients that my husband had bought from the supermarket. When my husband saw what I had prepared for dinner, he seemed very disappointed.
Why did you prepare food for the both of us? I only asked for my dinner, not yours.
I assumed that we would be celebrating together.
I'm celebrating, but I never said that I was celebrating with you. This food is all mine. I bought everything with my hard-earned money. You can sit in a corner and watch me eat.
That's not fair! I put in a lot of work to prepare this dinner. And true to his word, he ate all the food at our dinner table. He looked like a pig hogging its food. He continued to devour the food in silence.
This is a good meal.
I was scared of the monster my husband had become, and I watched him eat like an animal.
Stop staring at me. You look like a beggar.
And then he laughed at me scornfully. He was the one being irrational, yet I was the one being punished. I started to cry about the unfair situation I was in. I decided that I had to get a job because he wasn't allowing me financial freedom. But when he found out that I was looking for a job, he didn't allow it. For some reason, he was furious with me and started to yell.
You get yourself a job, or neighbors will think that I'm not making enough money for the 2 of us. How do you think that makes me look? I'm not going to allow you to get a job.
Lots of women have jobs nowadays, and no one will think that about you. Besides, you're the one that told me that I couldn't use any of your money. That's why I need to get a job.
Well, of course I'm not going to give you any of my money. I'm going to use my money for what I want. I don't care about you enough to spend any money on you.
Then, you need to let me look for a job. Otherwise, I'll starve to death. My husband was livid as he started to take it out on the furniture.
I said no, and I'm not going to change my mind about this. You don't stop pestering me. I'm going to take it out on you the next time. Now make me some dinner. I'm hungry. At the very least, you're a good cook. Not everyone is lucky to find a man to marry. You should be grateful that you have a great husband like me.
I didn't understand how he was a great husband to me. He was terrible and abusive. I hated him. My husband began to go grocery shopping with me so that I couldn't buy any food for myself. He became even more stingy with his money. He kept a close eye on me so that I didn't have any freedom at all. And to make me feel worse, he would buy anything that he wanted at the grocery store and flaunt it in my face.
This looks delicious. Put it in the shopping cart. And these too.
But if I tried to buy anything for myself, he wouldn't allow it and got angry with me. I wanted to confide my problems with someone, but there wasn't anyone that I could talk about this with. My mother was so ill that I didn't want to add any additional worry or stress to her. And my brothers were working hard to pay for my mother's medical expenses. When I used to have a job, I offered to chip in, but my brothers wouldn't accept my money.
You don't need to worry about the money, sis. We'll take care of it.
I didn't know how to get out of this nightmare, and in the meantime, I was losing a lot of weight because I wasn't eating enough. I hadn't eaten any solid food in days, and I felt faint. I was starving. The only thing that I was allowed to eat were my husband's leftovers. That was how I stayed alive. If I took any food from the fridge, my husband would find out because he made a note of everything that was in there. I thought about running away many times, but it was difficult because I didn't have any money. One day, my parents-in-law came to visit us. They were in town for another appointment and decided to come see us unannounced. That day, I was passed out on the floor because I hadn't eaten anything in a while. I woke up to the sound of the doorbell ringing, but I was too weak to get up and open the door. My parents-in-law were worried, so they had a superintendent open our door. They were shocked to see me passed out on the floor. The next time I awoke, I was laying on the hospital bed.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you're awake. We were so worried about you, dear.
Did you two bring me to the hospital?
Yes, you were unconscious at your house and we got worried. We saw you through your window and we asked the superintendent to let us into your home. We called an ambulance and had you brought to the hospital. Why have you lost so much weight? Are you not well?
Yes, we were very worried about you. I'm glad to see that you're awake now.
My husband and I lived on the first floor of our apartment building, which is why it was easy for my parents-in-law to peer into our window to check up on me. They saw me unconscious on the floor and knew that they had to help me. I was very touched by their kindness and I began to cry because I felt a sense of relief that I hadn't felt in a long time. My parents-in-law were very worried to see me in such a state.
Are you all right? You could tell us what is on your mind. You don't need to bottle up your feelings.
I knew that this was the moment for me to tell them the truth about their son. I told them that their son had been really sweet to me when we were dating, but the moment we got married, he changed drastically and started to abuse me on a daily basis. I revealed to them that he didn't let me buy any food and that he was starving me as a form of punishment. I also mentioned that I tried to look for a job, but he stopped me because he didn't want me to have any financial freedom. I confessed that the only thing that I had to eat were my husband's leftovers, which is why I was so malnourished. My parents-in-law were devastated when they found out about how badly their son had been treating me.
I can't believe that our son did this to you. This is unforgivable, and he needs to be punished.
Our son's an idiot for treating you like this. We won't let him get away with this.
My mother-in-law cried with me, and my father-in-law was furious with his son.
Let me go buy you something to eat. You must be hungry.
She ran to the cafeteria in the hospital to get me some food.
I apologize for what my son has done to you. I'm going to try to make it up to you.
He apologized to me profusely. There's no need for you to apologize to me. I know that you had no idea of what was happening to me.
I feel responsible for the way my wife and I raised our son. As his father, I owe you an apology.
My mother-in-law came back into the room.
I brought you some things from the cafeteria. Please, eat anything that you like. I also got some pudding for dessert.
I was so happy to see the food in front of me. It had been a while since I had a decent meal, and I was very grateful to my parents-in-law. They were so kind and different from their son, who didn't even share pudding with me. I ate all the food that my mother-in-law had brought me. I cried happy tears. This is all very delicious. Thank you so much.
My son must have depraved you to the bare necessities. We felt terrible about what he did to you.
I'm gonna have him come over to the hospital so that he can see the state that he put you in.
My father-in-law called my husband's company phone number. The person who picked up the phone transferred the call immediately to my husband.
You idiot! How dare you treat your wife with such disrespect! You need to get yourself to the hospital now and face the reality of what you've done!
My husband couldn't figure out what his parents were doing in town and why they were with me at the nearby hospital. He could see that his father was angry, and so he headed to the hospital right away as told. When my husband got to the hospital, he was greeted by his furious parents.
What are you guys doing here? Aren't you worried about your wife at all? Look at the state that you put her in! She passed out because you didn't allow her to eat! How is that my fault? You can't deprive your wife of the bare necessities! Are you trying to kill her?
We know that you haven't been giving any money to your wife, and on top of that, you wouldn't allow her to get a job. What's the matter with you?
It's my money! I can spend it on whatever I want! She has no say! Will you stop this bullshit?
What did you expect your wife to do with no money and no job? She could have starved to death. What you did to her was unacceptable.
I gave her my leftovers. I enjoyed watching her begging me for food. She's such a loser.
My mother-in-law was so shocked by your son's evil words that she fainted. My father-in-law was furious with his son and punched him hard in the face.
You're a piece of shit. I'm ashamed to be your father. You're good for nothing. Why do I have to be the one to be punched in the face? This is so unfair.
I was feeling strong after my meal, and with the support of my parents-in-law, I said, I'm filing for a divorce. I don't want to spend another minute with you.
You're making the right choice. You shouldn't be with someone so abusive. It's detrimental to your well-being.
We'll make sure that our son pays you for all the pain he's inflicted on you up until now.
I was touched that my parents-in-law were taking my side and not their son's.
Why are you the one leaving me? It should be the other way around. I'm not gonna let you touch my money.
My husband's parents were stunned and irate with their son's selfish words. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to divorce my horrible husband. My husband left the hospital and I stayed there to get further treatment for my malnourishment. I got some drip infusions and ate a lot of healthy food to regain my strength. In the meantime, my parents-in-law got the divorce papers for me.
I had no idea I raised such a monster of a son. I'm so sorry for all the pain he caused you.
I can't believe that you two are so lovely, yet he's so nasty.
Have you signed the divorce papers? We'll go file them for you. I'm sad that you won't be a part of our family anymore, but you will always be in our hearts.
We've hired a great lawyer to make sure you get all the necessary payments from our son. Now go enjoy your new life without our stupid son.
I was encouraged by their kind words. I was going to miss having them in my life, but I knew that this was for the best. Thank you so much for all the support. You two saved my life. I'm so grateful to both of you. My parents-in-law filed the divorce papers on my behalf, and I was finally free of my husband. My husband showed no signs of remorse for what he had done to me and refused to take any responsibility.
I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I the one being punished? I'm the one that wants a divorce, not the other way around. I'll be perfectly fine on my own.
Between my husband and his parents were ruined for life as well. I was happy to be on my own again. My divorce lawyer successfully got my husband to pay a huge amount of alimony. I wasn't counting on my stingy ex-husband to pay me any money, but my divorce lawyer was really good at his job. The court ordered my ex-husband to pay me the alimony in one lump sum. My ex-husband told himself that his life would be much better without me, but it turned out that his father had told my ex-husband's employer about how he had been abusing me at home, and my ex-husband was fired from his job. Everyone at the company started to gossip about my ex-husband, and they all found out about what a terrible person he really was.
Did you know that he was starving his wife and enjoying it? What kind of sick person would do such a thing?
What he did to his wife is horrible. He deserves any punishment that comes his way. I totally agree. Why would someone do that to another person? It's unimaginable. I heard that he didn't allow his wife to get a job because he didn't want her to have any financial freedom. I had no idea we were working with such a sociopath. How creepy.
I'm sorry, but I can no longer give you any important projects to work on. Your reputation at this company has plummeted. That's not fair! I've been working really hard! Well, I don't think it was fair of you to abuse your wife and cause her to be malnourished. You should be happy that we haven't fired you yet. Having you at our company is a risk in itself. So that means I'd come to work every day but will not be given any real work to do? To be honest, we'd like for you to hand in your resignation. We don't have any use for your skills anymore. This is so unfair! What did I do to deserve this?
My ex-husband went crying to his parents after he lost his job.
You deserve every bit of this after what you did to your wife. Don't come crying to us for help. We're not gonna help you in any way. You're not part of this family anymore. We don't ever want to see your face again. Now get out of here!
Without a job and having paid a lot of money to me as alimony, my ex-husband was now completely broke. He could no longer afford to pay rent and was kicked out of his apartment. He was forced to move to a shabby one-room apartment in a bad neighborhood. I still sometimes wonder why my ex-husband had been so nice to me when we were still dating, and completely changed for the bad when we got married. I found out later that his parents had taught their son to share his food with the rest of the people at the same table as him. But deep down, my ex-husband didn't like the rule that his parents had created and rebelled as soon as he got married to me. He thought that by marrying me, he owned me, and that gave him the right to boss me around and abuse me. When we were still dating, he was being polite, but after he had won me over, he no longer felt the need to do so.
Our son deserved what he got in the end. Please use your alimony payments to have the life that you deserve. Perhaps find yourself a new partner that'll take good care of you, unlike our son.
I feel lucky that my parents-in-law came to visit me that day, because if they hadn't, they wouldn't have been able to save me from their evil son. I'm so grateful for all that they have done for me. I shuddered at the thought of me having to live with someone like my ex-husband ever again. I'm going to make sure that I find happiness. I owe that to my parents-in-law. And if I ever decide to get remarried to someone else, I'm going to make sure that they are the right person for me and that they actually care for me. After my divorce, I moved back with my mother to care for her. I was so happy to be living with my mother again and felt lucky that I had both the time and the money to take good care of her. I also didn't need to rely on my brother so much for money anymore, which was a relief. I'm sure that my mother had a lot of questions about my marriage and divorce, but instead of bombarding me with questions, she just simply told me that she was happy to have me home. My brothers say how skinny I had become, and after finding out about my ex-husband had been abusing me, they tried to pay him a visit. But I told them that that would be unnecessary. My ex-husband already got the punishment that he deserved. I was so happy to gotten rid of my ex-husband. I wanted nothing to do with him. My brothers were mad at me for the fact that they had let my ex-husband abuse me for so long. They had wanted me to come to them for help as soon as it became an issue. My eldest brother is married, but the second eldest brother is still single.
You need to eat more food. You need to gain back all the weight that you lost.
My brothers came to see me and my mom frequently to check up on the both of us, and each time, they brought my favorite foods with them. Now that I'm safe with my mom, our fridge is stocked full with all kinds of delicious food that my brothers have bought for us. I've been sharing the food with my mom and her nurse. Sometimes my sister-in-law comes over to check in on us, and she would often say, "You're eating too many sweets. You need to eat more healthy foods like vegetables. I brought over some dinner. Let's eat together." It all looks so delicious. Thank you so much. I was fortunate to have so many people looking out for me. I'm so happy to be reunited with my family. I eventually started a new job which allowed me to balance my time at home, too, so that I could still care for my mother as needed. My brother said to me,
I don't want you to overexert yourself with a new job and caring for mom.
"You worry about me too much. I'll be just fine. Thank you." I heard a rumor that my ex-husband was looking for a new job, but he was having a really hard time. He had a terrible reputation after what he did to me. Some people have seen him walking the streets in rags. Well, he got what he deserved, and I wasn't going to waste my time feeling sorry for him.
3 years into our marriage, my wife cheated on me. Her lover is her former high school classmate. The reason why I noticed her affair was because my wife has been avoiding sleeping with me at certain points in our marriage. My wife is my only partner, so honestly speaking, it's not fun to be able to do it with just anyone. So I asked her, to which she replied,
It hurts down there. It might be a medical issue.
"If that's the case, it's a serious problem." So I suggested that she get herself checked at the hospital, and I didn't push her to sleep with me. However, a year after that, my wife started to persistently invite me to bed. Her urge was so strong that she acted like a beast searching for prey. A very different persona from when she used to reject my invitations. However, her actions escalated from there, and there was even a time when she welcomed me home with only her underwear on. Her approach started to become stranger and more eccentric. So I tried to stay calm and think about the situation. Why now? Does it have to do something about the balance of the hormone or something?
It has to be now. I want you to hold me.
She told me, and I started thinking of reasons why she said that. I thought of a different situation in which she might say that, and could it be that she's having an affair, and since she's pregnant, she wants me to think it's my baby? That thought floated around my mind for a minute. Not knowing what to do with this thought, I jokingly asked my wife if she was having an affair, if she was pregnant with someone else's baby, and wants me to think that the baby is mine. Funny, right? To which she replied with a horrified look on her face.
Stop joking around! How could you joke around like that?
With that worded expression and trembling voice, I thought that it might be true. Since then, I got anxious about what might be, and my gut wrenched like crazy. I was frustrated with disbelief and distrust that I felt like I was going to die. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I started to look for evidence, and that's when I found that there was actually a mountain of evidence inside a box in the compartment under our bed. Bingo. I was right. There was a schedule book and a diary with her lover's pictures. There was even an adult toy with her lover's name on it. There were even photos and videos of them sleeping together neatly compiled. That was the first time in my whole existence that I felt utterly shocked. I felt tremendously horrible. I stood there dazed for a moment. Then I heard my wife come home. When she opened the door to our bedroom, She screamed and dove onto the pile of evidence of her affair. Then she scrambled the pieces of evidence under her and crouched down. Then she started weeping and screaming at the same time.
This is not what you think it is. These are not mine. They're my friend's stuff.
She started to spit out things that don't make any sense at all. You expect me to believe you when all the pictures are showing your face?
I said they're my friends. Why don't you get it?
She just kept saying the same nonsense over and over again in a raised voice. My wife was hunched over on the floor looking like a lost turtle. Thinking I needed the mountain of evidence, I collected all the evidence I could find and piled them into the storage box. I headed out the door. I feigned composure and pretended to be calm in front of my wife. But the truth is that I was actually panicking and forgot my phone in the house. That day, I lived in my car. Slept in it too. The next day, I used the public telephone to call my workplace that I will be taking the day off. I then went to my single friend's place who was living alone. I asked him for advice on how to go about things. He suggested that I hire a lawyer, demand alimony from my wife and her lover, and get a divorce. Thankfully, my friend let me stay at his place and even cooked food for me. I haven't gone home for several days. I thought I'll have a difficult time looking for a lawyer. But since I had all the evidence that I needed and we had no children, I was able to find someone willing to take my case without much difficulty. The lawyer is a woman, and I heard that she is strong when it comes to divorce cases. Then, when I arrived home, my wife happily greeted me. When I saw my wife, I remembered the mountain of evidence. It made me feel like throwing up.
Where did you go? I was worried sick about you.
My wife said as if concerned about me. So I told her, let's get a divorce. Her face turned pale, and she tried to explain.
That was just a misunderstanding. It was really just my friend's, and I was keeping it.
Even at that point, she still wanted to keep it a secret. I was appalled. I was appalled from the bottom of my heart. I was sure she was going to do it again, even if I were to forgive her. So I ignored my wife. I instead collected my phone, passbook, passport, and other important documents. She followed me around crying like a child and desperately explained herself. But I remained silent, and I didn't entertain her annoying cries. Macy kept on saying that those things all belonged to her friend, but she finally said,
Please believe me, that was a lie. You're the only one for me. I was just tempted for a moment.
She didn't even realize that what she said contradicted her previous statements. When I went out the door, I handed her the divorce registration paper to her. I told her to sign it and send it to me after signing. The rest of the communication was through the lawyer. I didn't want to get involved with Macy, and I didn't want to remember that awful memory. When I demanded alimony from both of them through my lawyer, Macy's lover called my lawyer and said, I want to meet him in person and apologize to him. But my lawyer rejected his request. The lawyer told me,
To sum it up, I think what you wanted was a reduction of alimony.
Chris was single, so my only way of revenge was to get him fired from work and demand a high amount of alimony from him. So, I don't want to reduce it at all. I had no plans of reducing the amount at all, though. I even wanted to demand more, you know? I made him sell his car and other valuable belongings. I made him pay in one lump sum. I sent certified documents to his workplace, so I'm sure he's fired from his company now. After that, I sold our house, and Macy was sent straight to her parents' house. The next day, we met together with both our parents and announced our divorce. To summarize what Macy said during that meeting, she confessed that while I was at work in the middle of the day, she met with her married female friends in the neighborhood and secretly hosted blind date parties. They pretended that they weren't married and got addicted to these parties. She wore simple clothes to the parties. Simple clothes were better received by the men instead of being all dolled up. So that's why there were no flashy clothes and innerwear inside her closet. Then, she just happened to run into her former high school classmate at one of the parties. They hit it right off and became closer than they should have. Since then, they started dating within 3 months. Chris proposed to Macy, so she told him she's actually married. But to her surprise, Chris said, So just get divorced and then marry me. However, I want you to wait until I get back on track, though. Then I will propose to you again. When that happens. Hearing his utter nonsense, Macy got her hopes up. She also continued to date for about a year. She even mentioned that she was planning to get a divorce and leave me. A nasty woman. So that means she just used me to fill in the gap until her lover gets back on track. Then, she found out she was pregnant with Chris's baby and told him that she wants to give birth to the baby, but he replied, "I don't want a child yet." Chris rejected the baby. Macy had the not-so-brilliant idea of pretending the baby was mine, so her love affair wouldn't be found out. That explains why she suddenly was so persistent on sleeping with me, after a long period of not doing so. She probably computed it and thought that if she just made it look like the timing was the same, I wouldn't notice. But a whole month of difference? There's no way I wouldn't find out. She's probably thinking of giving birth early, that idiot wife. I mean, I think she looked down on me very much. Macy was a housewife living off my salary, so even if she tries to find work, it'll be quite difficult for her. That's why my parents-in-laws desperately begged me.
Please, give our daughter one more chance. I beg you. Macy, show you're sorry for what you've done.
My father-in-law scolded her, but I replied, "I'm sorry. That's impossible. Look at the number. Look at all this evidence. All I have for your daughter is hatred and disgust. It's so disgusting that there's no way I'll take responsibility and be the father of that child." Having said that, my parents and I left them with their jaws dropped. I'm sure my parents don't want to be in a family with someone who cheated on their son. We did end up getting a divorce, and I received a huge amount of alimony. Macy and Chris's relationship naturally fell apart. Filled with rage, Macy's parents went to Chris to have him take responsibility for the child. But Chris said he was just elated with Macy. But he realized that he didn't really want to marry her. It's just a mess. The baby was born after several months, but Chris didn't marry Macy, so her parents demanded alimony from him. Chris got fired from work and didn't find a job after that, so Macy left her baby to her parents' care, and she worked several jobs from morning until midnight. There was a time when she called me saying,
I need you in my life, Trevor. I'll never betray you again, so please, let's start over again.
She contacted me and tried to get back together. She's gotta be kidding me. Not able to marry her lover and instead gets into constant fights with him? She should carry the consequences of her action.
My name is Ariel, and I live with my mother and older sister. My father passed away when I was a young child. For some time, I had a full-time job which required me to commute to work every day by train. But I had a tough time doing that, and so I decided to find a new job which would allow me to work from home. I found working from home much more comfortable, and I was enjoying my new job. In my new job, I was my own boss, and so I didn't have to deal with any difficult bosses or annoying colleagues. And the best part of it all was that the company that I worked for appreciated what I did, and I was soon promoted and even got a pay rise. The only problem I had was at home. My mother and sister didn't believe that I had a significant career which allowed me to work from home. But part of the reason was because we lived in the countryside and there wasn't anyone else in town like me. And some of my neighbors seemed to think that I was unemployed because I never left the house. My mother and sister were concerned about the way the neighbors were talking about me, and they urged me to get a proper job.
Ariel, when are you gonna get a real job? All you do is laze around the house all day. You're an embarrassment to the family.
You just don't get it. I have a prestigious job which pays me well, and a luxury of working from the comfort of my own home.
I don't believe any of that.
Because you never leave the house, our neighbors seem to think that you're living off of my money, and I'm really embarrassed about it. Your sister has a full-time job. Why can't you be more like her? All you do is sit in front of your computer all day long doing God knows what. You're a disgrace to the family, and we'd like you to move out of this house.
In the beginning, my mother and sister insisted that I get a real job, but now they were both trying to kick me out of the house. I don't mind living on my own, but I loved this house. The house that used to be my grandmother's, and I had so many beautiful memories of her here. I didn't enjoy being abused by my mother and sister, but I was reluctant to move out of the house that I loved so much. One day, I received a phone call from one of my clients requesting a face-to-face business meeting with me, so I was going to leave the house and go out for this meeting. I had to take a plane to get to the place of meeting, which required me to stay the night. I had a friend that lived close by, and she kindly offered me to let me stay at her place. When I told my mother and sister that I would be gone for 2 full days of work,
Oh, that sounds great. You're finally going to get some real work done.
Good luck with your client meeting.
it was kind of creepy that the two of them were acting so supportive all of a sudden. I wondered if something had changed, but I told myself that there was no point in me thinking about it any further. My client meeting went well, and I was assigned to the new project.
This is a big project, and we're really counting on you. You'll be compensated well for your services.
I'm glad that we're able to speak in person today. That's how much this project means to us. Thank you very much for this big opportunity. I'm going to work hard and make this project a big success. I know that you will. I hope that you get to spend more time in this area and enjoy the local food and landmarks. You are very talented. We're always talking about how we'd love for you to join our company as a full-time employee. The job will come with a lot of perks, I assure you. Thank you for the offer. The job sounds amazing, but I'm really loving the fact that I get to work from home right now.
I see. That makes sense. Well, I guess we'll just need to keep hiring you for our services then.
Yes, thank you. After my meeting, I got in touch with my friend Sarah, who's letting me stay at her place for the night. I just finished my client meeting. Would it be okay for me to head to your place now?
Of course! I'll be waiting for you. I'm so excited to see you.
It was great seeing my friend Sarah. We talked about our fun memories together from university throughout the evening. Sarah had 2 beautiful daughters who were both so adorable.
I feel so bad about the way your mother and sister treat you. They haven't changed at all. I never understood why your mother favors your sister over you.
I know, it sucks for me.
If I were you, I'd move out ASAP. I can understand how you'd feel want to hold on to your memories of your grandmother, but you can still remember her from your new place.
You're absolutely right. My grandmother was the only one that was nice to me in our family. I miss her so much. My grandmother knew that my mother favored my sister, so she would make time for me and do things that made me happy to make up for it, I guess. I have fond memories of me and her going to cafes together.
Your grandmother must have loved you so much. I hate that your own mother and sister are being so horrible to you.
I shouldn't let them treat me like this, but they gamed up on me and it's just not fair.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were packing up your stuff as we speak and getting ready to kick you out of the house.
They better not do that to me. They were so unusually nice to me when I left the house, which was creepy. Sarah and I stayed up until midnight talking. It was so nice to catch up with her. When I returned home from my business trip, I was very shocked. Where did all my stuff go? Sarah was right. My mother and sister had packed all of my stuff and put their belongings in my bedroom. This is awful! How could they do this to me? My mother and sister came into my room with sinister smiles.
We had a lot of stuff, so we decided to use your bedroom as storage for our belongings.
Where did all my stuff go? What did you do with my computer and their heirlooms from Grandma?
Oh, that garbage. We sold all your stuff to a thrift shop. Your computer was relatively valuable, but Grandma's heirlooms didn't sell for a high price.
Now that you understand that we have no room for you in this house, you should get ready to move out.
My mother then headed over to a suitcase full of clothes for me.
You don't deserve to live with us until you get a real job like me.
I was furious with both of them, and my face turned red in anger. Fine, I'll move out. Are you happy now? I stormed out of the house with a suitcase that my mother had given me. My mother and sister were elated.
Don't ever show your face here again.
I hope you enjoy living all by yourself.
I went to the thrift shop that my mother and sister had sold all my stuff to and bought everything back. I was lucky because the store owner hadn't deleted the data from the computer yet, and he hadn't put any of the items up for sale. I then found an apartment that would allow me to move in right away and had the movers bring over all my stuff. I was most pissed off by the fact that my mother and sister sold my grandma's heirlooms. I was thinking about how I could teach those two a lesson from what they had done to me. A month went by. As I predicted, I received a phone call from my sister.
Ariel, how come there is no money in our bank accounts? Did you steal all of our money?
Why would I do such a stupid thing? Don't you know that you and Mom were living off the money that I earned with my job?
What? I thought Mom was paying for everything.
Why would you think that? Her mom doesn't even work. She's living off her pension. Where did she get that kind of money? It turned out that my sister assumed that my mother was paying all of the bills, and my mother assumed that my sister was paying them. In reality, I was the one paying for everything, and they had no idea. My mother lives off her pension, and my sister has a job, but she wasn't putting any money into the household. It was obvious to me that this would happen.
How were you paying all the bills without a proper job?
You and Mom are the only ones that seem to think so. I have a great job which allows me to work from home. You two just don't seem to get that. I earn more than an average person.
You must be joking. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm not. I only put up with living with you and Mom because I loved that house. It reminds me of all the happy times that I had with Grandma. But when you sold off her heirlooms, that was the last straw.
Who's gonna pay the bills then?
Well, you have Mom's pension and you work full time. So I'm sure that you two can figure something out.
No way! I don't earn that much money. You can't do this to us. I use the money to buy things that I need. I don't have money to be paying bills. You should send us some money.
Why in the world would I do that? I don't live in that house anymore. I have no obligation to pay the bills. By the way, you're going to get a huge bill for the house repair soon. I paid for everything up until now, and I took great care of the house because I loved it, but not anymore. I'm going to find a new way to honor Grandma. I had the roof repaired, so I think the bill will be around 10 grand.
I don't have that kind of money. Are you being ridiculous?
After that, I received a phone call from my mother as well. She demanded that I pay her an allowance since I was making good money. I blocked her number then and there. A few months passed and I heard that my mother and sister couldn't afford to pay the property taxes of the house and that they were evicted. They desperately tried to get in touch with me, but I was long gone. My new place was nowhere near where they lived. As for my grandmother's house, I made the tax payments that were due and I inherited the property. But I didn't live there because I knew that if I did, my mother and sister would come see me. I decided to rent the house to someone that would take good care of it. My sister was a big money spender, so when she got her credit card bills, she couldn't pay them off. She was forced to live in a shabby one-bedroom apartment with our mother and couldn't spend her money freely anymore. Because she couldn't pay her credit card bills, the credit card company deactivated all her cards. She is now living a frugal life and working hard to pay off her debts.
My name is Jessica Whiteman. I'm just an average high school student. I'm one of the more quiet students in my class, and I don't stand out. Perhaps because of that, I had become the target of the popular girls in my class, and they often bullied me. At first, they would only tease me a little bit, but little by little, the harassment started to escalate. The main perpetrator of the bullying was a girl named Karen Snyder. She was the leader of the girls in our class.
Hey Karen, how's it going with your boyfriend? Huh? Oh, it's going pretty well.
She has lots of friends, and she has a boyfriend. She was at the top of the food chain within the school. That Karen started picking on me about a month ago. Karen had invited all of the girls to karaoke, and I rejected her invitation. Ever since then, I had become Karen's enemy. She began to tell all of the other students how I rejected her invitation, and that I was an arrogant brat who didn't know their place, just because of something so small? That's what I thought, but every person would have a different reaction to it. I figured if I let it go and didn't think about it too much, that she would move on eventually.
Hey white man, go buy me a drink.
Why should I have to? In the beginning, she would lightly poke at me like this. If I kept saying no, she would eventually give up, so I didn't let her bother me too much. Why should I go buy a drink for someone that I wasn't even close with? The other problem was that she had lots of friends. They say birds of a feather flock together. So if Karen didn't like me, then that meant that they all didn't like me. Just because Karen was against me, more than half the girls in the class also looked down on me.
Jessica is such a loser, isn't she?
Ugh, seriously,
I know. Girls can be so easily influenced, and together they're terrifying. If the leader says so, then that's that, and everybody follows. It's almost like a toxic company.
the reason why I didn't crumble was because of the few friends that I had.
You shouldn't let it bother you too much.
Yeah, that's right.
No matter what others would say about me, the two of them were always by my side, even if they got bullied because of it. They always stuck by my side, but it hurt me to know that my friends were being looked down upon in the class because of me. Because they were talking to me and friends with someone that she didn't like. Karen also hated them. That's just the way she was. That's why anybody that was associated with me also became an enemy in their eyes. I hated that the most. Huh? What happened to my pencil case? When I got back to the classroom, my pencil case that I left on my top desk was gone. Karen was grinning as she stared in my direction. I could only imagine this was her doing. I couldn't understand why she would do something so childish as this. Does she enjoy seeing me look distressed? I had no choice but to look for my pencil case and found it in the trash can. That's gross.
What are you picking out of the trash can? That's disgusting.
When I grabbed my pencil case out of the bin, Karen raised her voice for the entire class to hear. That must have been her objective. I took my stationery out of the case and went to go wash it at the bathroom. Luckily, my pencil case was made out of fabric, so I could easily wash it and get any dirt or smell out of it. But while I was washing my pencil case, I was so frustrated that I started to cry. Why? Why me? I found myself thinking if there was anything I could do to get back at Karen one day. Is there anything that I could do to embarrass her? If there was any way, I could make Karen get a taste of her own medicine in class. I started thinking. I thought it would be better if nobody knew what I was up to. So I went to school early and looked around the classroom for ideas. But in the end, I couldn't think of anything good. That day, we had a new seat assignment. And to make matters worse, I was placed in a seat directly next to her.
Here, trash-picking woman. I'll give you some trash.
I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose to someone like her, and I definitely didn't want to stop going to school because of her. That's why, no matter how unbearable the bullying was, I continued to go to school. Then one day, as usual, I headed to school early to see if I could get any ideas for revenge on Karen. When I walked into the classroom, I saw my desk was plastered with staples all over. They're going to take it this far? Without thinking, I was talking to myself. As I started to rush to get my desk back to normal, I finally had a great idea. That's right! I can just trade this desk with Karen's desk! I'm pretty sure Karen went home earlier than anybody else yesterday. And usually, she was speaking loudly about her boyfriend, so she must have had a date with him after school. That's why Karen probably didn't know that my desk was like this. It must have been her minions that did it. I had also gone home straight after school yesterday, but the people that would do something like this besides Karen were her two minions. I just have to put this here. I quickly traded Karen's desk with mine. Then I left the classroom and went to hide in the bathrooms. Once everyone had gathered in the classroom, and there was a commotion about the state of the desks, I went to go get the teacher. And then, as if I was the first person to discover the desk, I went to go report it to our teacher. Mr. Brown, Karen's desk is covered with staples. It's awful. We got to the classroom.
What did you say?
Karen must have arrived at school, and she was just staring in shock at her desk. Seeing this, Mr. Brown looked at Karen and was worried.
Are you okay? Hey, everyone! Who was it that did this? Raise your hand now! This is a clear case of bullying!
As soon as the teacher said this, Karen's two minions had turned completely pale. Karen never thought that she would ever be bullied, so her ego was in shambles. She started crying on the spot. While the teacher was furious, there was no way that her minions could say that they did it, but that it was meant for someone else either. Plus, it seemed like I just arrived at school with the teacher, so I'm sure that the minions wouldn't have suspected me.
I'm disappointed in you all. I can't believe that something like this would happen in this class. You're all high school students already. What do you get out of bullying someone like you're still little kids? Listen up. You should all hear this loud and clear. That the bully is way more of a child than the bully.
It took everything in me to hide my laughter sitting next to Karen. There was definitive evidence of bullying, and the bullied was actually the former bully herself. On top of that, Karen was listening to the teacher's lecture with a distraught look on her face. The teacher continued to be extra worried about Karen. In response to that, Karen looked really awkward as she replied. Final cherry on top came at lunchtime, but one of the boys in the class said one thing.
Well, it's no surprise that she was the victim. She's been doing such shady bullying herself anyway.
I'm sure that he thought Karen wouldn't hear him, but I know she heard every word. Karen only became more pale than she already was. After that, the bullying towards me came to a complete stop. Not only that, but Karen calmed down overall and went quiet. It seemed that this incident really struck a chord. Either she thought that somebody in the class really hated her, or the lecture from the teacher hit close to home and she felt guilty. Whatever the case may be, the bullying towards me stopped, so I didn't care.
I'm so glad that Karen stopped doing anything to you.
But I guess there are other people who didn't like her and finally did something about it.
I wonder who it was, though, that had the courage.
I know, right? I wonder who it was. Actually, it was me. I would never say that, but as long as she backed down, then that was all good enough for me. I glanced over at her two minions and couldn't help but laugh. After that, the two minions tried to figure out how the desks were swapped and who was behind it. Of course, they questioned me as well, but since I arrived in the classroom after them, the minions suspected me. But I was in the clear. Karen finally understood how it felt to be bullied, and I can only hope that she'll never do something like that to anyone ever again. Especially because there are young students who commit suicide because of things like this.
My name is Nick Anderson. After graduating from university, I wanted to learn the French language, so I used the working holiday system. I worked day and night in the kitchen at a hotel in Paris and took French language class. Since I worked in the kitchen, I received free meals, so I didn't have to buy food every single time. There are also many other foreign students from different parts of the world who use the working holiday system. Most of us had tight budgets, so we helped each other in our own small ways. There were many untouched leftovers, so I brought back some food home. I shared that food with a beggar. His name is Anton. Here you go, Anton. I got you some fish and chips that you mentioned before. That's your favorite.
Oh, Nick! Thank you for always giving me food. I'm sorry I don't have anything to give back to you.
It's fine, don't worry about it. I came all the way from the US, but I'm surrounded by my foreign classmates every day at school, so I can't learn French at all. On the other hand, you're a native speaker of the French language, and you talk to me in French with the right accent, so I think of it as like a tuition fee for teaching me your language. You're my teacher, Anton.
Ha 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 ha! If my French is fine with you, then I'll teach you as much as you want. But why do you want to learn French that much? You even came all the way to France to learn the language. Is French really necessary for you to learn?
Yeah, I want to work in the fashion industry, so learning French is a must, especially dealing with French clients. There are many French people who can speak English, but many French people prefer using their native language when doing business, especially in the fashion industry.
Fashion industry? You want to be a designer or something?
Not necessarily a designer, but I do like fashion and I like French culture. I've always wanted to work for a French company when I get back to the US.
I see. Don't they teach language courses in America?
I took some French classes when I was in university, but only the basics were covered. In my home country, everyone will be impressed if I can speak French fluently. Plus, it'll definitely increase the possibility of me getting into my dream job. By being able to speak French fluently, I'll be treated like a VIP.
Really? So does that mean I'll be treated like a VIP if I go to America?
Well, first and foremost, you need to learn to speak English.
Haha, you're right.
Anton used to work for a financial company, but lost everything. He was in his early 40s back then. He told me everything about what happened before he lost everything, but there were many advanced vocabularies used that was too different for me to understand. What I understood from the limited vocabulary I had, though, is that he lost his job because of the biggest post-war recession. That greatly affected the French economy. Because of the sudden declaration of termination, he lost everything all at once, from his wife to his daughter to his house. The reason why he was separated from his wife and daughter was not because they had a huge fight or anything like that. He said that he still loves them very much. Then one day, a farewell party for my fellow American friend was held. We drank a lot like there was no tomorrow. With staggering, tottering steps, I went back to the hotel. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere came two burly-looking middle-aged men. Before I knew it, there was a huge blow, a quick low kick, and a strong punch to my stomach that set a gut-wrenching pain throughout my body. Panting and wheezing, I tried to make sense of what was happening before everything turned black and I became unconscious. I don't have any memory of what happened after that, but I was told later on that evening, from my clothes to my belongings, were stripped off from me and I was dumped into a shady back street. 4 of my teeth got broken as well as my nose. My ribs were cracked, my leg was stabbed, and all my fingers were broken. The police told me that I might have been tortured, trying to get me to say my car details. However, the perpetrator was not caught. Wasn't even half a year of being in France, but there's no way I'd be able to understand their fast French since I was drunk. Because I didn't answer to any of their questions, that's probably why they took all that they could take from me. Perhaps because I was too drunk or fainted that I wasn't able to really feel extreme pain. I don't even have any memories of what happened after I fainted. That's why I don't feel traumatized by the incident. Of course, when I woke up, I felt a very strong pain, but if I experienced being robbed and beat to pieces like that when I was sober, I would probably end up being mentally ill. After that, with the severity of my injuries, I was told that I would need to stay for a whole month at the hospital. But thankfully, I was able to get discharged from the hospital after 3 weeks. I bought insurance before studying abroad, but I never thought that such a terrible thing would happen to me, so I limited it to only $75,000. I was told by the insurance company that my injuries would reach the maximum limit within a month of hospitalization. That's why I decided to leave the hospital and return to my home country to receive treatment there, even though I was not fully healed yet. I should be more careful when traveling to a different country, as unexpected happenings like this could ruin my savings or worse, take my life. I said farewell to my close friends, including Anton. I didn't tell Anton the reason why I was injured, but on the last day, we went to a burger restaurant and ate a sumptuous meal together. I was thinking of paying for the meal, but I was surprised when Anton paid for it, saying it was a farewell gift. I don't know what happened during the time I was hospitalized, but he told me he started working part-time and saved some money.
Nick, you're a good person, so I'm sure things will get better for you from here. Bonne chance!
I will never forget those words he uttered before we said our farewells. I continue my treatment in the US, and after being completely healed, I continue to study French using different methods. Then, 8 years later, when 3 years have passed since I joined a company in the fashion industry, I was assigned on a project together with my senior at work. It was a project held in Paris, so we went to France for a business trip. This contract was so critical that I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said that it would make a difference in the fate of the company. I'd been working for the company for 3 years and was just getting used to it, but I was still a novice at the job. But I spoke better French than my coworkers, so I was chosen to go along with my senior at work. I can tell that he was just as nervous as I was, because he was very silent throughout the flight. But deep inside, I was secretly wishing to see Anton again after all these years. However, my hopes went down when I went to his usual spot and didn't find him there. The next day, my senior at work and I went to meet our client. When I met with the person in charge there, we both thought, huh? Trying to recognize each other's faces. Looking at our reactions, Mr. Smith asked, could it be that you know each other? Nick, you studied French here in Paris before, right? Mr. Smith asked me, so asked the president. Do you happen to be Anton? That's when tears started flowing down Anton's cheeks. Ooh la la! Out of surprise, Anton repeatedly said that. Nick! I wanted to see you! I can't believe you're standing right in front of me! Crying tears of joy, he hugged me and said, when I saw you helpless at the hospital that day, you were the only person who treated me like an equal. You even called me a teacher, even when I was in that state. No one else treated me like you did, even after you left. When you left France and went back to the US, I was all alone again. I thought that I shouldn't keep depending on others, and realized that I'm the only one who can change my life. That's why I worked very hard these past years, and I have finally made it up here. Looking at Anton and me in tears, my seniors were confused as to what was happening. Anton didn't say anything at the time, but he was actually the one who put me into a taxi and brought me to the hospital, thinking it was a matter of life and death situation. He thought of the fastest possible way to bring me to the hospital. There was a taxi nearby, so he thought it would be faster than calling an ambulance. As for the payment for the taxi fare, Anton explained the situation to the taxi driver and said that he'll pay later. So he searched for an immediate job, worked part-time while I was hospitalized, and paid the taxi driver. Hearing the truth, my heart was filled with gratitude. And before I knew it, I was hugging Anton and telling him, Je t'aime! It wasn't a business meeting anymore. After that, Anton invited me to his house. I was warmly welcomed by his wife and daughter. Over some wine, Anton and I filled each other in about these past years. The reason why he divorced his wife and daughter was to get them out of the hell of debt. He cut off contact with them to avoid causing them any trouble. After that, Anton was in despair and became self-abandonment. That's how we ended up homeless. But after meeting me and realizing that he could still be useful to someone despite his state, he got his motivation back and started working part-time. Saved some money, applied for a full-time job, continued to work hard after getting the job, and this is where he is now. Once the foundation of his life were in place, he contacted his wife and daughter, and they started living together again. The reason I can live happily with my family now is all thanks to you, Nick. You saved my life, my wife, and my daughter. I'm truly grateful to you. After that, we successfully concluded the negotiations, as one would think. I mentioned earlier that work and private life should be separate, but Anton gave us a pretty huge contract, so my efforts were recognized by my boss, and I got promoted. After that, I was assigned to be in charge of the business transaction with Anton's company. So every time I go on a business trip to Paris, Anton and I meet. By the way, Anton's daughter in university is very pretty. So I jokingly told Anton, Anton, would you give me your daughter's hand in marriage? To my surprise, he replied with, I was planning never to say yes to any man for my daughter, but since it's you who asked, Nick, I am more than happy to say yes. He then gave me his daughter's contact number. Now, every time he introduces me to someone, he says, this is my son-in-law. I'm very proud of him. I haven't really met my real father, and I've never seen pictures of him, so I don't know what he looks like. That's why I think of Anton as like my own father.
This is a story from a time when I was on transfer assignment and living in a temporary house. One day, we started to find some strands of long hair around the toilet every now and then. My family consisted of my husband and my 2 daughters, but even my daughter with the longest hair only went down to about her shoulders. There was nobody in the family who had hair as long as what we were finding on the floor. After we thought maybe it was flying in from somewhere, perhaps from the window, but it didn't make sense for it to keep happening, and I got scared. On top of that, our window all had a hard lock on them, but the bathroom window in particular was a narrow safety window that would only open about 8 inches, so it was hard to believe that somebody would actually be able to go in and out of there. But no matter how many times I cleaned it up, a few days later they would be there again, and given that there were long strands of hair to it, started to feel like a horror movie, and I got even more scared. Even my daughter started to ask,
Is there a ghost in this house?
To be honest, I was absolutely terrified of things like that, so I really didn't want to answer. But my youngest daughter was still in preschool, and I knew that I couldn't let them be scared in their own home. I'm sure I just flew in when there was a fan on or in the toilet, and I did my best to reassure them. But
when we moved into the house, we hadn't heard of any previous incidences there, and I was wondering if maybe the landlord was keeping a secret from us. But what if it is actually a ghost? I started to think when a certain incident did occur. One day when I came home, I saw my daughter crying, so when I asked her what happened, I didn't want to believe the words coming out of her mouth.
Mommy, is our house a cursed house?
Huh? Cursed? Where did you hear such a thing?
One of my friends in class said that the house has a ghost, and that's why it's cursed.
Who was the name of your friend that said that?
It was Misaki.
I was so shocked to hear such a rumor was floating around. But if my daughter was going to be bullied for it, even if it was just a joke, I couldn't let it continue. I immediately called the preschool. The preschool also had no idea that a rumor like that was floating around, and they were surprised. However, I asked them to get in touch with Misaki's parents to try to figure out what on earth this ridiculous rumor had started from. It was even more awful than I thought. The rumor was that there was a long-haired ghost in our house, and if you come into the house, then you would be cursed. Even worse, they said that if you played with my daughter or spoke with her at all, you would also get cursed and die. When I first moved into this town, I remember talking to some of the few moms about this creepy horror movie-like situation, but none of those people ever used it against me. If anything, they saw how serious I was about it, and they started reading some books, trying to find ways to get rid of whatever the entity was. That's why I couldn't imagine that any of them would start such a terrible rumor. On top of that, I was still new to this town, and I couldn't really recall doing anything to make someone hate me like that. Even if it's just a joke, it certainly wasn't funny. And I wanted to get to the bottom of this rumor. When I spoke to my husband about this, he was furious that it was affecting our children. Until then, he had been brushing it off, saying that there wasn't a ghost and nothing at all was happening. But this time, he sprung right into action. He immediately went to go buy a small security camera and attached it to the window so it could be seen.
This should tell us the truth about those long strands of hair, whether it's a ghost or not. I'm not letting my daughters get bullied over this. We're gonna get to the bottom of this and kick those rumors to the curb.
A few days after the camera was put in place, my husband and I put our children to bed and went to check the footage. Then, right in the middle of the day, we saw a long clasp wriggle into the window and drop a few strands of hair into the bottom. Are you serious? What is this?
This is what they're doing, and then starting those rumors that are affecting our children. They're clearly doing this with bad intentions.
This time, my husband installed a camera on the air conditioning unit right outside the window. Then, of course, we found out who the culprit was. It was the wife of the house behind us, whom we had almost never spoken to. My husband and I took the footage straight to her house. What on earth is this about? And you must be the one starting the horrible rumors that our house is cursed, aren't you? It would be one thing to start the rumors about us, but you just spread it amongst our children's preschool. What's wrong with you?
Oh, shut up! I'm minding my own business, and everybody gossips anyway, so what about it?
And she started off this way and then continued to talk, but her reasoning was ridiculous. It turned out that the woman had a dog, but the person living in the house before us was always complaining about the dog's barking. She was relieved when that resident moved, but then my family and I started to move in shortly after, and she didn't want any of us to annoy her either. So she came up with a plan to chase us out of the house. That's the only reason why you started rumors about my daughters? Do you have any idea how that must have felt? Having their friends make fun of them and say that our house was cursed?
Rumors will disappear in no time. This is all because you guys wouldn't get out of the house.
She didn't show any regret at all. As irritated as we were, we left her house and went straight to report her to the police. We notified them about the strands of hair in the bathroom and the rumors that she started in order to have my daughters bullied at school. We got a lawyer involved to sue her.
Why the hell should I have to pay more money for starting a little rumor? This must be a joke.
She tried to stand her ground, but our lawyer showed no mercy and managed to win the case against this petty woman. We turned the footage into the preschool as well, and had them show it to all of the mothers who had heard this rumor to speak to their kids about it. And my daughters were no longer ostracized and were able to make friends again. That woman's hair was also only down to her shoulders, and it turns out that she was picking up the hair from the floor of her salon and using other people's hair to try to scare us. Knowing that we had so many random people's hair in our house made me feel even more disgusted, and I wanted to throw up. On top of that, the woman living behind us and our house were owned by the same landlord, and when he heard about this incident, she terminated their long-standing contract and had her kicked out of the house. The landlord had already heard from the previous resident about the issue with her dog, but at the time, he didn't think it was enough to kick her out of the house. However, he knew that she had crossed a line with this harassment. Of course, it was bad enough that word got around from my daughters, but for the landlord, it would have been just as bad to have rumors floating around his house that it was cursed. It would make it hard for him to find another tenant, especially since we all saw how quickly the rumors spread around this town. No matter how small and silly of a rumor it may have been, there were bound to be people who would avoid living in the house with any rumors, and some people might be too scared to stay. I could understand how the landlord felt, and where he was coming from by kicking out the lady to avoid any risks like that. The house would be nothing without somebody living in it, and paying rent, and if nobody was living there, then there was a higher chance of the house that it would deteriorate too. The dog didn't bark a lot, but I knew that's just what a dog does. So we weren't planning on making any complaints just because the dog barked a few times. Plus our family loved dogs. We were here on a transfer assignment, so we weren't going to be living in that house long anyway. And we wanted to be able to get along with all our neighbors. In the end, the town found out that she was the one who started those rumors and had my children bullied. And it came back to bite her in the butt. Nobody went to her salon anymore, and shortly after, she was kicked out of her house. Her hair salon also collapsed, and I heard that she moved to another town. I can understand why it was stressful to have a neighbor complain about her dog so much, but that certainly wasn't something worth getting my children involved in. But according to the landlord, she had also never trained her dog whatsoever, and the reason why she kept the dog outside in the first place was because she was annoyed by how much it would bark inside. Even if you're somebody who loves dogs with that reasoning, it would make me want to complain too. As much as we love pets, our family was always moving, and we can't guarantee that we would be placed in a pet-friendly house. But if we ever get an opportunity to have a pet, then it's important to take responsibility and make sure it's well-trained for its own sake too.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.